Travel has been significantly disrupted since COVID-19 shutdown started in the spring of 2020. But even without a pandemic, it seems that just when we have the time to enjoy and explore traveling, new challenges get in our way. Join us today to get inside advice from an expert on traveling well as we age well. Hello and welcome to Aging Insights. I'm Dr. Kathy Rowe, Executive Director of New Jersey Advocates for Aging Well. And today I'd like to welcome our guest, Tyler Sajacz, President and CEO of Tours of Distinction. So Tyler, welcome to our show. We're very glad to have you today.
Thank you, Kathy.
And can you tell us about yourself and what it means to be a travel agency these days? Because it is very, very hard to find them.
Well, I'm been a veteran of the industry for just over 20 years now. And approximately 7 years ago, I decided to chart my own path and purchase Tours of Distinction. So I myself have traveled all over the world and worked for various tour companies and travel agencies, creating and sending people on amazing life experiences to all destinations, all four corners of the globe, no matter what age they are and no matter what they're looking to do.
Nice. And, 3 years ago, travel came to a screeching halt when COVID-19 started. It seems like, we're starting to get back to normal, if we can call it normal. But what is different now and what should people expect if they're traveling for the first time since COVID? What has changed or what do they need to be aware of?
Well, I think what's changed a lot is just the perception of travel. People, would pick up and go without batting an eye before or worrying about what may come. So what's really changed is how people are looking and approaching not so much where they want to go to a degree, especially as we come out of COVID a bit, but how they're buying it. And a lot of people, what's changed the most is their booking patterns. So people would book and plan, and we're all great planners, and we tend to plan many things far out, whether birthday parties, marriages, and things like that. And travel was included in that. But now people are planning their trips or travel or whatever it may be in a much shorter time frame. So they're booking much more last minute. Because they want to ensure that the nothing's going to change at the destination they're going. They don't want to put something so far out and then lo and behold, the country closes its borders, a virus comes up, a pandemic gets extended or what have you. So they really, really want to make sure that that's not going to happen. And they also want to make sure that the money that they're putting down for their trip and their travel is going to go, and make sure that they're paying for what they get. So that's probably the biggest shift a little bit.
Well, I've noticed, and I wonder if you have, are the airlines and hotels more flexible about cancellation policies than they used to be? Expecting that these challenges are there?
They are. I'd say, believe it or not, the airlines are much more flexible, and especially right after the pandemic did start, they did become more flexible. At hotels, I would say not as much hotels. Hotels have had pretty much certain policies for the most part where you could cancel up to 4 p.m. the day before and receive your money back or with no cost if you did cancel. Airlines now have, airlines are tricky. They are now allowing people to cancel and get credits, but they're offering much more a la carte services. And what I mean by that is they've been doing that a little bit over time. You have to pay for your bag or you have to pay for a meal or whatever it may be on the plane. But they're offering many different fare classes now. So you can book a refundable ticket that's not much more than a non-refundable ticket, where prior a refundable ticket, you wouldn't even consider buying a refundable ticket. It was twice the price. But regardless, it's still worth it for every consumer and traveler to make sure and always double check that fine print when they're putting the money down for a ticket.
Okay. No, good advice. So even, before COVID, especially airports can be challenging. And there are some people that, who need assistance going through. And, let's face it, we're all 3 years older than we were when we were traveling more freely. So for people traveling by plane, what are some of the tips you have for making it through the airport?
Arrive early enough. If you have such, concerns that you will need to handle when you get to the airport, make sure you're there well ahead of time.
Okay.
Not going to rush yourself. There's also options available to people nowadays, such as Clear, which is an easier way to get through the TSA checkpoint. TSA pre-check as well is another great alternative for those that want to streamline having to get through the airport.
Okay.
If you do require any sort of mobility assistance, the best thing is to advise the airline at time of booking. Ticket, and let them know that that's something that you will require, and also to reconfirm it prior to showing up to the airport about 48 hours beforehand, so they can make sure that you are getting exactly what you've asked for. And further to that, even on the return end of it, when you're coming home, you're going to want to do the same thing. So the airline is aware that you're going to need that assistance.
Okay, and that assistance can help you get from the airport, from when you get out of the car all the way through to the plane.
They are really good at it, actually. And I think that comes to sort of the age factor of because we tend to be a little bit older when we'll need that sort of assistance.
Right.
And so there's that caring hand a little bit more. And it's definitely understood by the industry. Depending on the destination and where you're going, you'll find things could be a wee bit different, because a lot of the times the services, even though you advise the airline, that service is actually not provided by the carrier in most cases. It's provided by the airport itself, who has contracted a company for that at each airport.
So if you are traveling, if you have a prescription or your medication and you're traveling with that medication, do you have any suggestions for, bringing that through TSA or taking it with you when you travel abroad?
That's a great question. And I would. It can't hurt to ensure that your doctor has a note or a copy even of the prescription with your doctor's phone number, address, of course, name on it, so that if something does happen when you're away, you at least have that as a backup if you need it. And some countries have different sort of laws and what can go in medicine and what can't. If you have a serious condition, it is worth it to speak to your doctor prior to travel and see what he thinks as well too. I know a lot of people don't like to do that because it can cost, a copay to go speak to your doctor or whatnot.
Right.
But it can be worth it and save you some, gives you peace of mind, but can also save you a headache and possibly some money down the line as well.
Okay. So. Good to know. We're kind of lucky because we have access to several different airports. If you're up in the north, Liberty Airport, Newark Liberty is a huge airport and a hub. But you can also get to LaGuardia or JFK. If you're in the southern half of the state, you can get to Philadelphia Airport. Plus, there's the Mercer County Airport. And when you're making decisions, the fees change depending on where you're flying from. But are there other things to consider when we have the option of selecting airports?
Definitely distance. I mean, that's one thing to consider, but at the same time, it's worth to go on and see what each airport, sort of how long the lineups can tend to be. So you might find that, for example, JFK is an airport that we tend not to use so much. It's an extremely busy airport. So you don't just have a couple of airlines flying in and out of it. You have multiple international carriers that use it and use it as a hub. So that means delays are a bit more prevalent there. But also arriving home, you can wait in that customs/immigration line for much longer than many other airports. Me personally, I like Liberty Airport a lot. It's United's hub. So they kind of control a lot of the airport. I don't find the lineup so bad compared to the others. but LaGuardia is a domestic. So compared to the two on Long Island, JFK and LaGuardia, but definitely the distance, but also the routing of where you're going. If you don't want to connect, it's always worth to pay that little extra of a premium on the ticket price to fly nonstop, which do a lot of time as well. And that's something to consider. You could be flying to a certain destination and you want to look at the flight time compared to how long it takes to drive there, and traffic as well too, which can all add up when even maybe to fly somewhere a bit further that has a bit of even a connection could actually end up being shorter time overall.
So we've been talking about airports, but of course that's not the only way to travel. So let's talk about some other options like driving, train, cruising, and how they can fit into an older traveler's lifestyle.
So yeah, no, it's a great question. Many for older travelers, train's always an option. And I'll address the car thing in a moment. Train's always an option, but that can be a bit tricky domestically here for us because it's just not convenient, frankly.
Yeah.
It's an extremely long time. And it kind of tends to really only work in the Northeast corridor that we have here, so Washington up to Boston or return. That said, if you love trains and that's part of the experience you are looking for, there's many, many great train rides that can take you from point A to point B here that is worth the journey. It is relaxing. There's something soothing about being on the rails.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of convenience and access to a lot of what you're going to want to see and do, especially if you're interested in getting into the great outdoors a little bit more. If you're very much city focused and city oriented on your next trip, a train could be a great way to go. And then as far as driving, that really depends. With our experience, a lot of our travelers, they don't want to drive anymore.
Okay.
Roads can be a little bit more tricky to navigate, know what highway you're on and what way you're going.
Right, okay.
So that we tend to find sort of after a certain age, you kind of want to sit back and let somebody else do the driving or conducting or whatever it may be, and to them.
Yeah. And what about cruising? Because I think cruising has a certain reputation. There are members of my family that love cruising because they find that once you get on, it's very easy. So can you talk about the benefits, the pros and cons of cruising?
Well, cruising, yeah, it's a in travel speak, if you will, cruising is a recipe for success for those that you can get on a cruise and everything's taken care of. You can only unpack once, which is definitely a bonus for some.
Okay.
And have, in essence, be waited on hand and foot while you're on that cruise for 7, 8, 9, 10 days. You can do shore excursions if you'd like. You don't have to do them if you like. And some people don't. They just like to be on the water and be on the ship. Whether that's to visit the casino, whether that's to eat, or even to sit by a pool. Cruising's it's making its way back, but it's in my opinion, it's one of the slower segments of the travel industry that is making it a comeback. It's probably sort of at the bottom of the list.
Okay.
When the pandemic did hit, when COVID came along, the cruising was in the news as well.
Right. A lot of negative publicity. There are a lot of issues. Okay.
Make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. Cruising a lot of the time can seem like a good deal up front, and there's a lot of great deals out there. But you have to look for what you're going to have to pay on top of that. And there's a few things that you'll have to add while you're on the cruise that perhaps you weren't expecting to have to add.
And I think, the benefit of a travel advisor is, there's a lot of information online, and I get frustrated with this. When you search online, you're not always getting the best match. You're often getting the link to who paid the highest amount to get that placement.
And especially for the problems that can come up, because there can be challenges at travel when you're on a trip. I mean, you could lose your bag, an itinerary could change. And when you have an advocate in your corner when you use somebody very familiar with the travel industry / travel advisor as well too. They're there to help you, as opposed to having to call. I mean, I think a few of us has probably been in the situation where you're there to check into the hotel. You've booked it, and the hotel's saying, well, there's not much we can do. But if you had a travel advisor in your corner, they're the ones that can pipe up and further expedite anything that maybe needed to be done.
So let's get into the nitty gritty. So packing tips for when you travel.
Well, one, pack light. Always. I think we all tend to overpack. For any trip. We always think we're going to need this, that, and the other. So one, you're going to want to pack for sort of how you're living at home and the weather that you're used to. I mean, if you you live in the Arctic, of course, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to Florida, you're going to want to make sure you have shorts and not a parka for the whole trip. But you just want to be prepared in that sense without having then to carry around an extremely heavy and large suitcase that you won't use half of what's in it. Regarding prescriptions, you're going to want to put that in your carry-on so that it's with you the whole time. If you have a delayed, your bag's delayed or lost, well, you're going to be full out. You're going to not have your prescription available to you. And a lot of instances, you won't even be able to get that in the destination that you're going to if you did lose it. But also, you're going to want to make sure you have copies of your passports as well, too, and credit cards, just in case you lose those. Oh,
interesting. Okay. So make a copy before you leave and have it on you?
Exactly. That's correct.
Interesting. Okay. So, speaking of the prescriptions, I think one thing that worries people when they're traveling, especially in their later years, is worrying about healthcare if they get sick or injured.
Well, you're definitely going to want to have ensure that you have proper travel protection. I mean, that's I would say, especially for an older traveler, you're going to want that. And 99.9% of the people that go on trips with us will take that out. It is optional. Nobody's forced to buy it. But it really is a lifesaver, especially if you're going more so overseas than you are here in the States. Just because domestically, you'll be able to get yourself taken care of. You'll have whether in or out of network, you'll be able to access and use your travel or your health insurance, if you will. But overseas, that can change a little bit. So you want to be protected in that essence. And I mean, cruise lines, for example, will have doctors available, have them on the ship. Airplanes don't, that's why you've seen, is there a doctor on board? They don't necessarily have a doctor on board. And they have some medical equipment in case it is like a defibrillator as such. But it's also worth to double check what the health the healthcare is like in a foreign country. So just because a country may have universal healthcare, chances are some countries can be different than others, but chances are you'll still have to pay for you'll receive a medical bill at the end of the day. You will be responsible for if you did not have travel insurance. So So that's interesting though, because like in my experience, I was charged was a very low amount. I've heard stories all over. I've heard some people, I think it was in Ireland, were hospitalized, never received a bill, and other areas they had to pay a full amount up front. So when a country has universal health care, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get it for free if you need it. And that's something to check on. That's correct. Yeah.
And do you know if someone did need services, is Medicare taken abroad at all?
No. You mean that won't help at all.
Right. So there's not a reciprocity or a way for a foreign doctor to bill Medicare. You would have to. Okay.
That's something that you can always look at in that you can speak with Medicare about prior to traveling. But I'm not aware of that. I do know, as an example, if a Canadian does travel, they may, but that's because it's free in Canada, if you will. Yeah. So it's a bit of a difference in that, but and free for all ages. So they may cover you if it was a dire emergency.
Okay.
But even for that, there's not a good chance that they will. So it's worth speaking to Medicare about that before you go, just so you have that peace of mind in case.
So what would you say are the pros and the cons of group travel, going on a tour or group together, compared to doing it on your own solo?
So, I mean, the pros are definitely that you'll have, it's been done. So you can trust that the company has said, okay, we've been doing this for an extremely long time. And, so they know exactly for each itinerary that they have, what the highlights are, where to eat. And there is a level of trust that comes along with that. So you can walk away from the trip knowing that you saw what definitely you'd want to see when you're there. Most group tour companies, ours include a full-time tour director as well. So that's something you want to look at. And that tour director is there to make sure everything goes smoothly. If there is an issue, that's addressed and taken care of. And just overall to ensure the cohesive nature of a group. And you meet a lot of like-minded, fun people when you're traveling.
That's true, yeah.
And there's a bit of cost savings factored into a group trip as opposed to an individual trip as well, because most vendors give what's called a group rate. So you have, you get a bit of a reduction because you'll be bringing, 24 to 40 people or whatever the case may be, or size of the group. I'd say the biggest con is if you're a very, very independent sort of free spirit, a group tour is probably not the best thing for you, because it is structured. You have to leave and you're going to see things for an hour. We've had feedback on, I could have spent 4 hours there, that would have been better. Yes, but it's a group of 40 people that a company that does them would have to factor that into everybody else's time on the road and to make sure that they see other things.
So a lot of it comes down to your personality and how much freedom or how much exploring you want to do on your own.
Correct.
But with a group, it's easier. It might be a discount, and you're not going to miss anything. You wouldn't go to London and not see Big Ben, or go to Paris and not see that.
You'll definitely see that stuff when you go on such a trip in those respective destinations.
Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of companies, even on a group trip, will try to do a nice balance of free time and then, with included activities. That said, that free time is still going to be limited a bit more than if you were just there on your own. I mean, the biggest pro for me with a group trip is what to do. Even if I've gone on a trip and I've rented a car for my family, we tend to go, we'll wake up at, we'll sleep in, we'll wake up, and it still takes us a couple hours to figure out what we want to do for the day. We do it for a bit and then we come back and it's sort of over. So you can really, it's harder to fill in those gaps a little bit, in my opinion, as well, too, when you do have that time, because you really just don't know what's great there to see and do a lot of the time.
What are some of the places you recommend, particularly for older travelers? And also for intergenerational travel, for people that want to go somewhere with their grandchildren? Where do you suggest?
I mean, the world really is your oyster, but things can change a little bit. I mean, Europe is always, for older travelers, Europe's always a great destination, especially the mainstays like Italy, France, England, or Ireland, and probably places that have a bit of an easier pace. Especially if you've never left the country before. So we're seeing, if you never left, you're not going to probably, your first trip overseas probably isn't going to be a country like Mongolia. If you were going to go to, first time people to Asia will probably visit Thailand or Hong Kong or maybe Singapore or something along those lines. So we're sort of seeing Europe is always that great destination, right at home in the USA as well. And regarding multi-generational travel, you're going to want to look at places that sort of have a sort of an event attached to them. So we just had a trip come back from Quebec City's Winter Carnival in Quebec, Canada. And great for all ages. I mean, there's
Mhm.
something there for everybody. And Niagara Falls is another one.
Mhm.
Everybody loves Niagara Falls. There's activities, from going behind the falls, just going for a simple walk or eating in the Skylon restaurant that again attracts everybody else. But
Right.
um, younger folk aren't necessarily interested in visiting museums, yeah, pretty much, and just not that something that is not so much that you have to sit, read, and listen to.
When my kids were younger, one loved animals, so every vacation we would find the zoo,
Uh-huh.
which was a day out for us. And every city has a zoo, so we've been the Barcelona Zoo, the Dublin Zoo, the London Zoo, you name it, we have been to the zoo. But I think
Precisely.
it's, you can find things. There are kids all over the world, so find what the kids there like to do.
Absolutely. And you might even find a lot of the places have hotels or accommodations that you're staying at have even then kids clubs and things that they can take on
Oh,
for themselves that help them, let them and the kids have fun locally with others their age to see and do
right.
there. Well, the adults can go out with the other adults and see stuff that fits more their interest in what they're looking to see and do.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. Um, so do you have any other do's and don'ts that you want to share with our audience? We've covered so much, but anything else comes to mind?
I just think do keep an open mind, and pack some patience, uh, especially in a post-COVID travel world. Things have changed. It's getting a
Mhm.
lot better and easier out there, but there are still a lot of places that, so have a bit of understanding, I guess, as we ramp things up. We tend to live in an Amazon.com age where we can order something
Mhm.
today and have it tomorrow, and in some cases even today.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily translate into travel. If
Right.
so, a restaurant may be a little bit slower serving some food. There may be a little bit longer line going, entering the country through immigration because they don't have the same number of staff that they used to.
Okay.
So I'd sort of say that's kind of the biggest thing. And I mean, don'ts, I don't really know about don'ts. I think most people are pretty open-minded and
Mhm.
understand that they are somewhere different. But you don't think like you're at home anymore when you do go somewhere else.
Okay.
Think that you are somewhere else and respect and know that you are, and things can be a little bit different.
Okay. That's great advice. So let me ask you, where are you going next? What are your travel plans for the year?
I actually would love to go to Canada. I've been
Mhm.
back to Canada for a very long time, actually. We're looking at northern France. I
Mhm.
actually, France is my favorite country. I've been there countless times. I've been there more times than I have fingers, but I've never been up to the Normandy region. So
Oh, wow.
I'd love to get a place up there for a couple weeks, specifically this summer. And my wife's also from Ecuador, so I haven't been back there in a while, and nor is she. So we'd really like to head down there and over to the Galapagos Islands, uh,
Mhm.
which are the Galapagos. It's where Charles Darwin did his theory of evolution and things like that.
Right.
You can't touch the animals, but they can touch you. So it's really quite something to be there. I love wildlife, so anything to do
Mhm.
with wildlife is sort of what I'm kind of looking to check out next. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Well, let me know where you're going and maybe I'll join you.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you for watching this episode of Aging Insights TV, also available as a podcast. To find out more information and to view previous episodes, please visit our website at www.njaaw.org and click on Aging Insights. Aging Insights is brought to you with the support of our funders, supporters, and viewers like you. I want to thank our partners here at PCTV for helping us bring our guests to you today. If you need information or resources about services in your area, please contact your County Office on Aging. Their phone number can be found on our website, or you can dial the state hotline at 877-222-3737. You can also find a wide range of resources for older adults on our website at njaaw.org.